So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. Today is Tuesday, May the 17th, 2022. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And we'll give Michael just a moment to get dialed in, and I'll invite you to go to our website, which is whyagain.org, and just look around and see what all's out there. There's some new stuff, and let me know if you can't find something. Drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, at whyagain.org, and let me know what you're looking for, and I'll see if I can get it put in a position where you can find it more easily. Hold the space for us as soon as they pick Arya up this afternoon or this evening around 5 o'clock. Michael and I are going to hit the road, and we will be traveling. Hopefully we'll get 4 hours under our belt tonight, stop and get some rest, and then go on into St. Louis in the morning, get there and meet Krista and the kids, and then after we spend some time with them, we'll drive on over to Kansas City. And so we've got about 13 hours of driving ahead of us, and Michael J. will be getting married on Saturday. So the remainder of this week and on Monday, and possibly even on Tuesday, we'll be doing pre-recorded shows because we're going to be in the midst of all kinds of activity. So, all right, I'll turn it over to you, Michael.
And we've got some special stuff for you for those pre-recorded shows, stuff we wouldn't normally play. So I think you're going to enjoy them. And if you do listen and take some notes, and perhaps we can do some conversation and questions and thoughts about it as we get back online again. So welcome, everybody. I'm delighted that you're here once again. And one of the things that happens with the way our mouths run, the way our minds run, and unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the way our bodies run, is it's all on autopilot. A lot of it just takes no effort, no interruption, no interference whatsoever. It will just run its mouth. It'll just run whatever's in there. And if we allow that to happen, that's when, unless we've got a perfect history, if our parents, our grandparents, their parents, their parents, their parents, and their parents are all still alive, then there are energetic patterns, frequencies of death that are structured within our cellular structure, and whatever's going on in the environment will tend to resonate or activate those energetic patterns and put an end to our physical expression. And the objective of this work is to wake up beyond that and to recognize that there are qualities of energy. It's kind of like back to basics. There are qualities of energy that belong in a human system, and there are qualities of energy that just do not belong in this system. It's become the norm for hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, drama, and trauma to run in our business lives, in our relationships, sometimes in the relationship with the person we look at in the mirror. But well, that has become the norm in our culture. None of that is natural, which means that it's going to change the direction of what's on automatic pilot. We have this just amazing physiological device called the body-mind unit, which right from its design get-go is designed to be self-repairing, self-restoring, and it takes a lot of assault in order to destroy it. And unfortunately, most of us, if we look back at our history, anybody in our bloodline that's over 120 is gone already. So it's gotten the better of how many generations, to the point where we just say, but that's natural. That's just the human lifespan. I'd offer that's not true. My offering is that's a fraud. We bought that lie, like we bought a lot of other lies, like somebody else makes me mad, somebody else makes me sad, somebody else hurts me. We bought all kinds of lies. And oftentimes, because it takes effort to do something about it. People call that hard. Like putting the pen to a piece of paper to do some forgiveness work is hard. And people avoid it like the plague. Well, we've even made that one easier. I shouldn't say we because Jeanie did the design work on it. But if you go to your app store and type in the words Heartland, Heartland, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness, you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. And we made it easier. You don't have to have pen and paper. You can just put a few digits in your phone and engage in the forgiveness process. So it makes for much less effort than it otherwise takes. And many people, because everything else will just run on autopilot, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to be responsible. So many people just sort of let it happen because it seems like it's hard to do anything about it. The truth is, it's really hard to live without conscious interaction in your life. It's really hard to live with autopilot, hostility, fear, sadness, self-deprecation, guilt, fear, etc. And so our thesis here is that we can face each and every one of those things, and over time, with effort, no effort required to just let those things run on automatic pilot, but with effort, over time, we can remove those things. And it just makes for such a different process when we allow ourselves to do that. So that's where we're heading with this work, is the invitation to engage in really truly functioning out of the truth of who we are as human beings. And if you hold a newborn and tap into the essence of that newborn, you will notice a very powerful characteristic of this being that you're holding, and that is that its essence is love. And in this case, love is not a verb, but it is a noun. It describes a state of human life. And having, come through generations and generations and generations of what we call civilization. It's interesting, back several decades ago, they asked Mahatma Gandhi what he thought of Western civilization, and he said he thought it would be a good idea. And he was referring to the fact that there is so much just blatant insanity that runs behind the scenes. And if we don't know any better, then we'll do behaviors that add to that and simply go along with the inertia of the program, so to speak. And if you remember from high school, the definition of inertia is that a body moving in a particular direction at a particular rate of speed will tend to continue to move in that direction at that rate of speed until it's acted upon by an outside force. So we come into a mind that is programmed prior to birth and a genetic structure that's already fait accompli, and the culture would teach us, well, there's nothing we can do about that. Our offering is there's plenty you can do about that. They're shown in the laboratory that, as little as 8 hours, you can change your genes. And you change your genes by engaging in different behaviors than what comes with this autopilot system. The main tool is the tool of forgiveness. We suggest that hand in hand with forgiveness, which means removal, not letting others off the hook, that you take time to cultivate your relationship with yourself as love. Take time to spend in that state, connected to that state, and functioning out of that state. Find environments where you perhaps are challenged to do that, but choose to do it because you recognize that's who you are. You know, a perfect laboratory for that one is to have a child of 3 around, 2, 1, which we've had the last 3.5 years. We've had the opportunity, you know, usually 2 to 3 days a week to be with that presence of love, to reinforce that presence of love, and to assist her. Something other than love is coming online in her mind to recognize that that's not who she is, and to continue a conversation with her about we're here to designed for something other than unbridled hostility and fear, which so much of our culture is engaged in. You know, these days when I ask the question of Jeanie or ask Arya, why are we here? She'll say, to be love. She knows exactly why we're here. And so it's an ongoing daily practice to function as love in her presence and to support her recognizing herself as that. So it all becomes a practice. And the work of forgiveness in each of the tools that follows. You know, when you look at, you know, there's some 35 or so different tools that we've developed. The communication tool, the commitment, the codependence tool. Each one of them is a different worksheet: purpose, personal power, and commitment. You look at empowered to heal. You look at the Beatitudes. Jeanie's going to play the conversation that took place. There's a gentleman who studied with us at Heartland and became involved on a deeper level, with the work, and in particular working with the Beatitudes. And so Mark Haddis and I had a conversation over 3 or 4 days where we really ferreted down, drilled down into the Aramaic Beatitudes, which are just profoundly powerful in application for taking us out of autopilot and putting us on a conscious plane where we truly function as we're designed to function, as the active presence of love. So in essence, that's the purpose for our radio show. That's why we do what we do. And we're delighted that you're here to be part of it, and would love to open a conversation with anyone who's got any thoughts to share, anything going on in your world, anything that you'd like support and assistance with the tools. Ms. Jeanie, we have anything happening in the chat room? I know I talked to somebody yesterday who had said that they were sending a question in the app from their iPhone. Have you gotten anything in the way of questions from somebody on an iPhone, Sweetie?
I got more of a statement. They were, and I wrote back to them. One, they asked what were the 2 dots behind the B, and I've looked on the iPhone, and there's several things that have a B in it, and so I wrote him back and said, you know, what B are you talking about? Because I'm not seeing what you're talking about. And then he's in both apps, the iPhone and the Android, like in the written worksheet, you know, down at the bottom are the definitions. So in the app, the words that have a definition have an asterisk beside of it. And if you click on an asterisk, it pops up the whole list. And you may have to scroll down to find that particular definition, but all of the definitions will pop up. And so they were saying that one of the definitions didn't pop up. So I was waiting to hear back from them to see what the other was. I'm not sure what dots he's talking about. And then I'll get the, instead of contacting India twice, I thought I'd do it all at one time. So if anybody would look at both the iPhone and the Android and go through and just do some, you know, worksheets and the game and look at the commitments and send a question and whatever, and make sure everything works. And if you run into something that doesn't, please drop me a line at Jeanie@whyagain.org and let me know what's not working so that I can get India to take care of all of it all at one time.
Yeah, that would be awesome if you would support us by, tracking any kind of challenges that you have. You know, on each page there's a button to click, and you can just send us feedback right then and there. So anywhere you're on it, and if you mark, identify what page you're on, where you're at, in which app, whether it's an iPhone or the Android that will help us to clarify and tweaking all the details.
And I do
Huge
know
number
that
of details in there, sweetie.
Several people say there's not enough room, when I write out everything and then I go to print it, it runs over top of itself. Well, the app is not made for you to do an epistle.
You can't write a book in it?
You say, no. So it's like, what's your thoughts? Well, I think that they did, and then they went, and then I said, and then it won't take all of that. I mean, it will, but it's going to print it out as global. So anyway.
Is that the official app word, global?
Yeah, that's my word. So anyway, I can't take care of that one for you. It would be like, if I made the app to have enough space that you could write a 200-word story, then it would take you 5 pages to print it out at the end of it.
Right. So the answer is meant to be concise, and if you do have something that's a good point. If you do have something that's a real major issue and you really need to get in deeper, that can be the place where you keep a notebook, you keep a worksheet notebook that goes hand in hand with the app. And if there's an issue that spills over, that this one's obviously more intense than there's room to handle in the app, then keep a notebook that goes hand in hand with it, and write your longhand, your epistles. And that can kind of be used somewhat as a mind shifter if you get something that's that detailed. And the way that we suggest that people use a mind shifter is once you finish writing it, and you may have 2, 4, 10 pages of written notes from the mind shifter, and you go back and read each of the steps in the mind shifter, and you really look at, okay, so is this another worksheet? Is this a hydra that I've gotten in touch with that I need to go back and do? So make notes on what that might be, or maybe this is a place where you need to sit down and write a responsibility communication to someone, or this is someone that you need to pull the commitment out and start to work with, or really utilize the additional tools that are available in on the website. And of course, on our website, I don't know, the website's over 20,000 pages, and there's just all kinds of material that you can work with and put into action in your world. And so, and if there's something missing somewhere along the way from any of the tools that you see, if you drop us a note, we will take that input and see what we can do to enhance our ability to support you. The objective of our website, the objective of this show, of everything that we do, is to assist in making the tools available. So, and we do that in 2 different formats. Just absolutely as much as we can make available, we make available freely. Yes, there are some paid ways to participate in this work. While we do everything we have the ability to do without a requirement for money, we haven't figured out yet how to do it all for nothing. Working with the technicians and I don't even want to start to think about how many thousands of dollars are in the app to get it to the point where it is and it's available freely. But that, of course, has to come from somewhere, and we haven't got a printing press for money yet. So we're waiting for that to deliver, actually, from the government. That would be nice. But we don't have one, so if you're using the tools and it's supporting you, then we invite you to have some input, create some support. You can go to our website, and there's a PayPal link, and just do a donation. And when you do a donation, if you make it to friends and family, if you just put it straight through, it's like you're making a purchase, and that way they take a percentage of it. If you put it in as friends and family, then they don't take a percentage, and we have a little more to work with. So, and beyond the most basic lifestyle you can have, everything that comes in from this work goes right back into developing the tools and creating broader and broader support for making the tools available. So, And we appreciate everybody who steps up to the plate and pushes that donate button and assists us.
And I had a thought on yes, when you're doing a worksheet, a lot of times they turn into hydras, and that's like Michael said, have a notebook and write those down because they're additional worksheets. But I have worked with a couple of people that it takes them 1, 2, 3 hours to do a worksheet, and I think that in their cases anyway, and I've told them this, that is kind of a self-sabotage. It's like I'll get so busy doing this worksheet and going so deep that I avoid the one issue that's in it. What do you say to that?
Well, busyness is the drug of the culture. I mean, go back to when we did the work in prison up in Ionia, Michigan, and Rex followed through and did an ongoing support group. And there was a requirement. They taught laws of living in the prison there, and this is a super high security prison. Literally, it's an old Civil War fort actually, and the prisoners there are how can I say it, the most prolific offenders in the whole state of Michigan, and they're all housed in that facility, and they're there from a minimum of 25 years to life. And these people, it's a men's prison, so these guys are in their cells unless they happen to have a job in the commissary, or they get out for an hour or two to go and work in the commissary or the laundry or what have you, or one of the slave jobs that they have, because in prisons it's under the Constitution, slavery is still allowed in the prison system. But there was a requirement of doing 5 worksheets a day through the prelude to Laws of Living, and literally the group of men that were setting up to do Laws of Living, every one of them had one reason why they couldn't turn in the 5 worksheets a day over that period. And these are men who are locked in their cells by themselves 23 out of 24 hours a day. And they all said to a man that they were too busy to do the worksheets. And, in a sense, I understand, because going in, uncovering, looking at the raw energetic patterns that are beneath our hostility and fear responses can be quite a challenging thing to do. But if you really, truly put the pen to the paper and do that work, everything that you're able to face and hold a space of active, connected love for begins to dissolve, begins literally, energetically. The energetic interaction between active, present love and trauma is to dissolve, literally to, I'm thinking in terms now of physics and atomic energy, is to literally remove the energetic infrastructure, the literal genetic and traumatic patterns by exposure to love literally begin to change their nature and their structure. And ultimately, that's the way that we can open and undo genetic patterns as well. And so it's a skill set. It's something that develops over time. And sadly, it's not something our culture has given much emphasis to. In fact, in most cases where a culture discovered tools for doing that, it kind of moved out of the realm, in too many cases, of here's how you heal yourself and function as a human being function as active love, and it's been turned into a religion. You know, if you go back to this man Yeshua 2,000 years ago, upon which this work is founded, his Aramaic teachings, his Aramaic words, you find him saying not, I come to bring you dogma and doctrine, I come to bring you my religious beliefs or beliefs you need to believe, but he says, I come to bring you life. It's about living as a human being. And each of those tools are techniques and methods by which you can literally uncover the energetic patterns right down to and including in your genes, and through exposure to love, dissolve them and move forward, living life more abundantly, living as love, and letting go of the need to interpret everything through generational patterns of hostility or fear, and particularly to interpret through the power person patterns of the past. And you remember the power person, we've spoken about many times, is the person in your life who had more power for your life than you did at some point, who was not functioning as love. And if you perceived those situations as survival situations, then the tendency is to allow the behaviors that were done by the power person to control your thoughts, your feelings, your behavior prompts, so that you'll tend to function out of the dynamics of the power person. That's our codependence to interdependence work. And if you're ready to do a whole new level of work in that regard, we do have a self-study 90-hour video series called Codependence to Interdependence Communication Practicum. And that's available as a self-study program that you can take and put to work in your life and go through at your own pace, literally the teaching, the questions and the answers, the process work of 2 full Codependence to Interdependence intensives. We did them back to back. So the second one was kind of like a refinement. You know, it came right on top of the first, and it was a refinement of the first. And we captured all of that on video. And so that whole package is available as a self-study. We do not have an intensive, happening at this particular moment. And so that is a self-study that you can pick up. And, of course, the idea of the radio show here, one of the objectives is to create support for everyone, and in particular for people who are doing the intensive work. So come and join us for that. You can actually buy the whole package, including 2 personal code evaluations. And the personal code evaluations are an evaluation that touches into 10 different areas of how the mind works, how your life works. And it shows, it's actually based on what's called the MMPI, which is kind of the gold standard of psychological testing. And it looks at 10 different areas of your life and shows you where your weaknesses are. So it looks at stress management. It looks at how you honor yourself. It looks at how you honor others. It looks at how you honor the truth. It looks at the level of fear in your mind. It looks at the level of hostility. It looks at how you honor laws of living, understand and honor laws of living. It looks at nutrition, digestion, toxicity, and the way that your mind consistent in producing perceptions about what's going on in your life. And it looks at the 10th area is use of will. That is, have you awakened the spiritual faculty of will, and does that function in you, or are you run by your mind? And so what happens is when you do that evaluation, you get 2 of them with the intensive. The first one you do, and where there are actually 2 videos that we'll send you that you watch to understand what those evaluation scores mean, and then you're given specific assignments to do in your 3 weakest areas. When you finish the intensive out, you've got another evaluation coming, and that has a purpose, two purposes. One is it will tell you how effective your work has been. It'll show you exactly where your improvements are, where your weaknesses are once again. So that's purpose one. You can say, well, gee, my lowest score was how I honor self. And yeah, I used to stand in front of the mirror and go, man, ugly, man, I never do anything right, man, it's stupid. Oh, boy, they knew me, they had me. And now you stand there and you look at yourself and go, oh, a human being, look at this sweetness, look at this. So if you move from, let's say, where that's a number 1 challenge to where it becomes a number 8 challenge, and then we'll give you a percentage change. So maybe, we'll see people as the scales are 100 points, and we'll see people who say, let's say on that particular challenge will move over a period of intensive by 90 points. That's like monumental. And so you'll know when you finish the intensive out exactly how effective the work you have done has been. And the second purpose of the second evaluation is it then gives you a new set of challenges. It looks at where your 3 weakest areas are out of the 10. It says, okay, here's your next level of work. And so if you choose to participate in that, it's a powerful process to enter, and you can do it at your own pace. And then the radio show is here to answer questions and support you in it. So if you want to do that, drop Jeanie a note, JEANIE at WHYagain.org. And make sure to put your name and your phone number in it, and we will get you set up if you want to do that. The cost of that 90-hour video package is $600, including the 2 evaluations, so it's pretty inexpensive. The live intensive was $1,800 that we did. It's the basic video work for that package. The people who participate in that, it was an online. It also includes a set of 14 weeks, 3 recipes a day for 14 weeks of fresh and raw recipes. So one of the things that we suggest people do, like for instance, if you came to Heartland and were participating intensive, you would not see anything cooked for that time period that you were at that intensive. We do all fresh and raw food. And so there's a private Facebook page that you get a link to if you participate in the intensive. And that gives you the whole process for prepping food. Thank you to Urate for the awesome job that she did in setting that Facebook page up. And she's got videos, and she covers what equipment's needed in the kitchen and the food prep, and she's just done a really awesome job. That comes as part of the package, and you have permanent access to the 90 hours of video plus the Facebook page. And then there's an app called Trello, where we have a private section with all of those recipes, color pictures, and all that. So that also is part of that package. So it's a pretty complete package to support people entering into transformation. And of course, with the food part, it's up to each person how far they choose to go. I know there's one gentleman who, he did his first intensive probably 15 years ago. He's done 2 intensives since, and the last one he did was about 2 years ago. And when he came to the intensives, he was at Heartland, and when he came to the intensives, he said he enjoyed the food, but it wasn't, his interest to do anything with it. So kind of went back to his old way of eating, but actually it's maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, he contacted us and said, hey, I need to get a copy of that recipes book you've got. How do I get that? So, okay, it's in our catalog. You can go order it there. He said, yeah, I've decided it's time for me to start to make some changes in the way I eat. And so he's been picking up on that and really, moving into the next level of nurturing himself through eating food other than the SAD diet, the standard American diet. And so something that I've been really working on understanding and moving in the direction of on another level For years we have been vegetarian, and we've invited people to look at that as a lifestyle. There's several really good reasons for doing that. One, eating animals is one of the most destructive things there is to the environment. The acres and acres and acres that it grows to produce 1 pound of beef. Let's see if I remember the numbers correctly. It takes about 100 gallons of water to put 4 quarter-pounders in a bun at one of these fast food restaurants. It takes 100 gallons of water to produce that little bit of beef, fresh water. And then the waste, the methane, cows, it's been scientifically shown cows fart a lot of methane, greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. And the chemicals used to raise the grains, it's not as if there's organic production going on. So the chemicals that run off into the water, it's just monumental, the impact of eating animals. And it is, a really major thing. Just even if you start cutting back 1-2 meals a week or 1 meal a day, the amount of greenhouse gas, the amount of toxic pollution, and the waste of arid land. Sadly, most commercial food production uses commercial food production methods, which means it absolutely destroys the soil. And, if you chemically destroy the organisms in the soil, if you pour on 10 gallons of glyphosate, which is what they do in order to produce, let's say, a field of GMO corn. They start out and they literally use 10 gallons of this toxic. I'm amazed. We just, at Dad's, we watched, he's got television on pretty much continuously. And, I'm amazed they're still advertising Roundup. And they've got cancer, convictions. They've got cancer payouts by the tens of millions of dollars, but they're still selling it. It just amazes me. But basically, to start a field of corn, 10 gallons per acre is poured on that corn. So everything in the soil is absolutely, completely dead, which means it's not soil anymore, it's dirt. Commercially produced food is grown in dirt. It is not produced in soil. The experts who study soil and soil erosion, desertification, and those sorts of things tell us that at the rate we're going, we've probably got 60 years of soil left on planet Earth. We've talked about how we're doing gardens. Well, calculating out, we've probably in the last 3 years that we've been producing gardens here, we've created about probably almost 4 tons of soil. We're not growing our food in dirt, we're growing it in soil. And, a lot of those things, once they've, the 10 gallons of glyphosate has soaked into the soil and made it into dirt, then they plant the seed, then they come along and put chemicals on it to force the seed to grow. And then they pour more glyphosate on it when the crop is mature to kind of freeze frame it. It dries the product out, and then it becomes harvestable and storable without deterioration, because things that are alive, things that are vital, actual food deteriorates. And that's not good for profit. So, all of these things come into it as a factor. And so we don't say, oh, you have to go, live food, or you have to go vegan or anything else. We're just saying, become conscious of what you're doing with food. And the whole food program on Facebook and the Trello app are designed to assist people in doing that. There are instructions for what kind of equipment you need for your kitchen, where to get it, and if you're going to do, let's say, a fresh and raw regimen, when to order the food, what to order to do next week's meals. It's all been laid out for you, so it's an easier transition. So that's all part of the process there, and that's just 2 of the things that we've invested in the last year and a half to make the support for transitioning into a true there's so many descriptors that come to mind. Live food, live life, lifestyle, and living as a human being. And so there are just a couple of things that we've invested in over the last couple of years to bring that forward on a global scale and make it available. So come and play. And beyond that, Miss Jeanie,
okay.
We've got about 20 minutes left. Have we got anybody out there?
We do have a hand up, and I just wanted to say, because 3 out of the people that are doing the MindShifters and Steel Point, we are doing the support group tonight. Michael will be doing it via Zoom.
Yes.
By his phone while I'm driving. So when you heard me announce earlier that we're going to get on the road when they pick up Arya, we are still doing the support meeting tonight.
Oh, yes.
But I'll be driving and Michael will be doing it on his phone. So we will still be there at 7 o'clock tonight. And our caller is 610. I believe it's Susan. Welcome.
It is. Thank you for that tirade, Michael.
Was that a tirade? Oops.
Well, it was the thing I wanted to ask you. I mean, I'm so glad you're talking about that. That is one of my things, as you know. But you put it out there without one of my. Those issues are triggers for me, and I'm constantly doing, my worksheets on reacting, because I react to things that are hurting the planet, or that I perceive are hurting the planet and hurting animals. And so you're talking about things that are very important, and I love it.
Right.
And you sound out of breath. Are you okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. No out of breath here.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You're kind of breathing.
But let me add. Okay, well, you got to breathe. It's definitely all day, every day. Breathe, breathe, breathe. But let me add, before we go on to your next thought, and thanks for acknowledging that, because I think it's really important too. If you want a really good look at the whole food issue, go to YouTube and type in the name Satguru, 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 and soil. Mm-hmm. And it's an excellent presentation. This is actually done in the country of Jordan, and they've got they're lining the whole country up to get behind this Indian guru's, and he's a different kind of guru in that it's not, just follow me. This man is active and on it. Like, I forget I think he got on a motorcycle. This guy's in his 60s in Europe and the Middle East, and literally rode a motorcycle 50,000 kilometers, going from city to city, country to country, to promote this idea of, folks, we got to wake up. We've destroyed our soil. And so they did a summit in Jordan, in the Middle East, and it's very powerful. They have, ministers of education, ministers, the government ministers of in the arena of agriculture and such, and it's a very powerful presentation. And he also does some good stuff around, functioning as a human being. So if anybody's interested in that topic, take a look. Just go into YouTube and type in Satguru soil, and you'll see several things, but the one in Jordan is really excellent.
Well, that's great. I've heard of him, and I admire him so much for doing that. For quite a long time, every day I would post something about the environment, helping, how you could help this or that. But I stopped it after about 2 years. Maybe I shouldn't have stopped it, but.
Well, maybe it's time to go back and recoup those posts and start posting them again.
Gee, I wonder if they're still around. Maybe. Yeah.
They're still there. Yep, you can go back and share them.
So one of my worksheets was on a next-door neighbor who's on the opposite side of the universe as far as political, allegiance or whatever it is, and we made I might have talked about this on the radio show. We made our backyard last year into a grow zone because it's totally secluded. We have everything trimmed up in front, but the back was growing wild for the bees and the butterflies and so forth. And she finally told me that she and a bunch of neighbors were disgusted with me. She didn't say it that way. She just said, first she called me and said, I'm thinking of putting up a fence between our yards. And I said, well, sure, if you want to. I mean, we've got lots of shrubs there and trees, and but go ahead if you want to. And then I said, is there a reason? And because it didn't even occur to me that this might be. He said, well, I don't like your backyard the way it is, and the city could get after you. And I said, oh gosh. And then she said, and we've had complaints from neighbors, which sort of surprised me because why didn't they talk to us? But they talked to her. Evidently there was some, behind the fences or something. So we mowed it all down. And this year,
ouch,
the shrubs between her, I know, and this year she didn't put up a fence, but there's literal block of fencing in the way of trees between our yards. Our yard is not visible to her yard except from a balcony off the second floor, and they do go out there. So I wrote to her this year, and I said, we're going to do it again, and here are the reasons. And I gave her my environmental pitch, and I said,
right.
We're not trying to be obnoxious, but we were just with lawns, and they pour pesticides. You talked about Roundup. They use it all over there, and they're a corner property, and there's a lot of Roundup going in there. So I just explained to her about what I was doing, and then I went away to Florida. I hadn't heard anything from her, and I thought, oh, good, maybe it's okay. Finally, I got a note from her. It wasn't a note. It was an attachment, city ordinance. You're not allowed to grow your grass beyond 10 inches or something. But I had called the city, and they said, oh, it's fine if it's not on a thoroughfare or an alleyway, as long as a neighbor doesn't complain. I thought, well, there you go. So I wrote back to her, and I said, I know this is legal, but I guess, I no, I didn't do that. I showed it to Tim, trying to remember the chronology. I showed it to Tim, and he said, yeah, she's got us. If there's a complaint, we have to cut it. He's a lawyer, and he just said so. Well, so I wrote back to her, and I said, all right, when I come home, I'll get my son to bring out the big machine and mow it down. And he did. On Sunday, Jonathan mowed the entire thing down. And I did worksheets on her because I was so angry, and that's partly a question for you. You have very strong feelings about wildlife, animals, the soil, political stuff, and you're probably invited to be triggered, but you probably aren't because you've done enough work that you can see what's needed, but you remain centered and okay, and I'm not able to do that very well. I have to do worksheets every time. So
well, I do have occasions where my frustration comes up, and I'll mutter under my breath about the insanity of what people put out and what people are believing of the lies that are put forward. But here's a thought, and I thought about doing this here. I just watched this particular piece. I mean, I've been a soil advocate for decades. We've worked at it at Heartland and such, and doing, proper soil care and management. And we've got a friend who actually is writing soil legislation for the state of Illinois. And she runs a nonprofit that is about rescuing prairies and restoring prairies to the original state because of the destruction that's taken place. But I've thought about seeing if I can rent a theater here in town, a movie theater, and do a showing of Satguru's video on soil. Because, I think many people just don't have a clue. They're on, as I started the show, it's automatic pilot. Oh, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. I've got a little story that I tell about God discovering what humans are doing to the earth. I'll print that off and share it with you on the show next week when we get back. But maybe you could set up and do a community service thing or through the church, or, it's just, in a lot of cases, I think it's just pure awareness, and people just don't know. Oh, it's supposed to be, only 2 inches high and blah, 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 and it's supposed to be covered with grass, and, those things that, bees go to, I mean, who wants those in their yard? It's like, we do. We've gone out and collected them and planted them.
Right.
The bee habitat, with all the bee destructions that has happened over the years. And I understand in the last year they're talking about something, I forget what the number is, some outrageous percentage, 30 or 40% of bees in this last year alone. The population's been reduced on a global scale, they're saying. That's like, that is tragic. And definitely wake up time.
Well, yeah. And even hearing you talk, I'm having to do deep breathing, and I'm thinking, there are my next 5 worksheets. This is getting old. It's just, and with this woman, I was able to worksheet my way out of anger and write to her and just say, okay, we'll mow it down. I hear you. We'll mow it down when we get home. And I was okay, but my son came by with his big mower from up the hill, and that emits a lot of gas, too. A lot of pollution from the gas. Tons.
Right.
Anyway, he had to use it. He had to weed whack because it was so high, and then he used the mower. And as he was doing it, he saw them come out on their balcony, and he said, I'm going to say something to them. And I got paralyzed. I said, don't say anything. I live next door to them. I just cannot have an ugly relationship with my neighbors. It's worth, that's worth something to me, too.
There's a good worksheet.
So he didn't. What?
There's a good worksheet topic. Being able to communicate to neighbors and with neighbors lovingly, gently, and respectfully where there are differences of opinion.
Don't worry,
to be able
Michael.
to
I'm
do
doing
that.
them.
Yeah, cool.
I'm doing
Sweet.
them. Yeah. She wrote back to me while I was still down there. I had said, okay, we'll come and cut it down. She wrote back and she said, I don't mean to be a bad neighbor. You've been a good neighbor, and we like you. And I think, bullshit. But anyway, she says, we like you, and we want us to get along. And, we're worried about mosquitoes and ticks and things like that. And we had to get rid of a little pond we have in our backyard because it was breeding mosquitoes. And we have these 2 dogs, and they're not, we don't give them flea meds because they don't spend much time. All this reasoning she was giving me. And I wrote back and said, thank you so much for writing, and I'll be home soon, and yes, I definitely want to be getting along with you, and that's very important. And I thought it was done with, Michael, but when I was going, I just felt as if my heart was being ripped out. All these beautiful wildflowers and the bees had been buzzing around in there. They're not living in there, but they're definitely. So I just had to do more worksheets on it. But it's just, I'm on a rant too, but I'm also asking you how you stay okay when things don't seem to be okay.
Well, you can be in a space of centered and see that there's something off base that needs to be dealt with. It's just, what's the automatic pilot of my generational patterns for dealing with those things? Do I deal with them through communication? Do I deal with them by keeping the love present in my mind? Or do I deal with them by going into hostility, control, fear, all the games of the generations? And every circumstance or situation like that is just another opportunity to do another piece of work and move forward. That'd be my take.
Yep.
And what I can't bring a gentle mind connected to love to is my work.
Yeah.
And because I can't bring a gentle, loving mind to something doesn't mean I need to put up with it either. So it's, it's a process for sure. And I keep clearing out the layers and the, and looking underneath at what the real energetic pattern is, where there's conflict and, going into a fit of rage over it and thinking like that's normal. I mean, when you think about it, that's bizarre that a human being that's designed to function as love has this fit of rage and creates all this disturbance in their physiology, all this toxic waste within their own structures. They suffer from it, but it's been, in our culture, it's been thought of as normal, and it's anything but normal. And that's why we're here to introduce the work. And, it's gone on for so many generations with, the good people all went to church, but they never knew it was about facing their own hostility and fear and dealing with it.
Yeah. Well, I don't go into a rage, but I do want to, I am critical and judgmental. I have feelings about people like that. I do that. So that's probably rage and just muted a bit.
Remember that you could stop at, I have feelings. Remember, feelings are internal. They're internally generated. They're not about anything other than what's going on inside of you. And if they're feelings that aren't based in love, that's your work to do. They seem to be caused by what's going on out there, but really there's always that underlying dynamic that needs to be dealt with.
Well, I think they. I told you were going to say
breathe
that.
In with you.
It just seems insurmountably difficult to me. I get pooped. I want to go.
Well, when you're the early adopter.
Say no. Yeah.
When you're the early adopter, if you think about how many people in your immediate community and family system have chosen to consciously, purposely function as love and to take responsibility for and remove everything that's unlike love. Like, how many people can you name in your environment, in your life, that have ever said, oh, here's what I'm doing with my life? Got anybody? I never had. There's one place I can remember that I did have, actually, my mom. One of the things I can remember as a kid, and I was sharing this with Jeanie recently, is whenever an ambulance went by, whenever a fire truck would go by, Mom would always bow her head. And she'd invite us as kids to do the same and send prayer, what she called prayer, to those who were in difficulty. But other than that, I never saw it.
Wow. That's lovely. That's beautiful. Okay. Well, God.
Yeah, it brings up some tender, just thinking about it brings up some very tender feelings for me at this moment.
I think so, yeah. That's a beautiful little story. Wow. Well, we'll be thinking of you as you travel.
Thank you. Much appreciation. We've got some miles to cover. We're going to get to hug our two granddaughters probably sometime tomorrow afternoon. And then we'll be on to wedding time in St. Louis, in Kansas City.
That's wonderful.
And then we're going to circle back to Heartland and do a little work there and get back to Bristol. So we're down to the last minute or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm planning. I think it's going to be. We're ready to rock and roll.
Good.
All right. Well, you have a blessed day and lots of love. Everybody, thanks for joining us, and blessings. Bye-bye.